Hello everyone, and welcome back to NPA Discovery, where we dive deep into the true stories behind the headlines, real people, raw emotions, and revelations that hit home. If you're passionate about powerful biographies and compelling behind-the-scenes journeys, then you've just found your new favorite corner of the internet. Today, we unravel the tragic, complicated, and beautiful life of a man widely considered one of the greatest actors of his generation, Philip Seymour Hoffman. A man whose performances were hauntingly real, yet whose personal demons were just as intense as the characters he portrayed. The title of this video asks a tough question: did success bring happiness, or did it amplify his inner turmoil? Was it fame that failed him? Or a system that didn't know how to hold someone so brilliant, so fragile? Stick with us. Make sure to hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you human stories that matter. Now, let's begin. Philip Seymour Hoffman was born on July 23, 1967, in Fairport, New York, a town that doesn't usually breed Oscar winners, but one that gave him something else: complexity. His mother, Marilyn O'Connor, was a family court judge. His father, Gordon Hoffman, worked in the corporate world. Their separation when Philip was just 9 years old left a visible imprint. He often described the family rupture as emotionally seismic, despite the fracture. Hoffman's early life was marked by two powerful forces: his mother's fierce work ethic and a burgeoning love for performance. At age 12, he saw a production of Arthur Miller's All My Sons, and it did something to him, ignited something. His mother noticed and fanned the flame. She exposed him to live theater, supported his interests, and made room for his imagination. He dabbled in sports. Baseball and wrestling were his favorites, but a neck injury at age 14 ended his athletic ambitions. Rather than mourn what was lost, Philip pivoted with almost eerie resolve. He turned to the stage. The drama club became his sanctuary. It was in those dimly lit high school theaters where Hoffman began crafting the emotional intensity that would define his later career. After high school, he earned a spot at the prestigious Tisch School of the Arts at NYU, where he graduated in 1989, but it wasn't some fairy tale rocket to stardom. Hoffman struggled. He took odd jobs. He floated. He partied hard. This was New York in the late 80s, after all. But even as he immersed himself in that scene, there was a gnawing awareness: he was losing himself. At 22, he reached a breaking point. He recognized a monster in the mirror and did something that many people don't do until it's far too late: he asked for help. Hoffman voluntarily checked himself into rehab. That single choice marked the beginning of the most creatively fertile period of his life. Sobriety didn't make Hoffman a star overnight, but it gave him clarity. And with clarity came consistency. He landed his first TV role in 1991 in an episode of Law & Order, and a year later, he appeared in his first film, adopting the full name Philip Seymour Hoffman to distinguish himself from others. But it was his breakout role in Scent of a Woman, 1992, that truly changed the game. Al Pacino may have won the Oscar, but audiences couldn't ignore Hoffman. Even in a minor role, he exuded authenticity. He wasn't movie star handsome or traditionally charismatic, but he was magnetic, and Hollywood noticed. From there, Hoffman became the go-to actor for emotionally complex, morally ambiguous characters. He worked with indie legends like Paul Thomas Anderson and the Coen brothers, lending his name to films that didn't necessarily scream commercial success but became critical darlings. By the late 90s, he was no longer just a supporting actor. He was the guy directors wanted when a role required depth, vulnerability, and raw emotional truth. What made Hoffman different wasn't just his talent, it was his total lack of pretense. He inhabited his characters fully. He gave them dignity, even when they were despicable. And he wasn't afraid to play them ugly, inside or out. Whether it was the sleazy game show host in Magnolia, the hopeless romantic in Punch Drunk Love, or the deeply troubled priest in Doubt, Hoffman never phoned it in. Every role was a risk, a descent into someone else's soul, but behind the camera, he wasn't a tortured artist. He was warm, loyal, often quiet. He wasn't interested in celebrity. In fact, he ran from it. Fame was never the goal. The work was, yet, as we'll see in the next part, that devotion to his craft came with a price. A heavy one. By the early 2000s, Philip Seymour Hoffman had become a name synonymous with brilliance and risk. While many actors chased stardom, Hoffman chased truth. He chose roles others were too afraid to touch. He played outcasts, addicts, egotists, and lost souls with devastating sincerity. Take his performance in Capote, 2005, for example. It won him the Academy Award for Best Actor, but what it demanded from him was far greater than just commitment. Hoffman didn't just play Truman Capote, he became him. He adopted the voice, the posture, the emotional eccentricities, and inhabited the author's loneliness with such intensity that even Hoffman later admitted it took a toll on his mental health. It required me to be unbalanced for months, he said in interviews. That imbalance didn't leave once the cameras stopped rolling, and herein lies the painful truth about method acting, especially for someone as emotionally porous as Hoffman. The line between performance and identity becomes dangerously thin. Friends and colleagues would sometimes remark on how difficult it was for him to turn it off. Mimi O'Donnell, his longtime partner and the mother of his 3 children, saw it firsthand. She once said that Philip treated every character, even the most toxic, with a kind of sacred respect. He believed every person had dignity, even when the world denied them that. That's what made him a brilliant actor. But it also made him vulnerable. At home, Hoffman was loving, hands-on, and grounded. But when the work required him to descend into psychological darkness, there was no parachute. For nearly 2 decades after his initial rehab stay, Hoffman stayed clean. He built a rich life filled with professional success, close friendships, and family. But addiction is a cunning, patient disease. It waits. By 2012, cracks began to show. Mimi O'Donnell, ever watchful, noticed that Hoffman had started drinking again, just occasionally, he said. A glass of wine here. A beer there. But for someone like Hoffman, there was no such thing as just. Soon, prescription pills entered the picture. Then came something far darker. He entered rehab again in early 2013, trying to halt the spiral before it took everything. Outwardly, it seemed like a temporary stumble. He continued working, filming the Hunger Games franchise, and appearing on stage. But inwardly, he was battling an escalating war. He moved into a separate apartment near his family, not to abandon them, but to protect them. He was trying, desperately, to fight, but the industry is not a place known for gentleness. Hoffman was constantly exposed to triggers, to temptation, to the enormous emotional demands of his roles. He was under surveillance from the media and, it turned out, even from people in his rehab facility. His privacy was violated, and he was reportedly blackmailed with footage of his recovery meetings. On February 2, 2014, the unimaginable happened. David Barr Katz, one of Hoffman's closest friends, came to his apartment after Philip missed an appointment. When he entered, he found Hoffman in the bathroom, lifeless, with a syringe in his arm. The news shook the world. He was only 46 years old. For those who admired his work, the grief was immediate. For those who knew him personally, it was unbearable. And for his family, Mimi, their children, his mother, it was a kind of pain that never fully heals. Mimi would later say, "Every day, I was afraid I would find him dead." But when it finally happened, it was still a shock. In that moment, the world lost more than an actor. It lost a man who made every character feel like someone we knew. A man who refused to fake it. A man who, despite his demons, gave us art that was real, vulnerable, and unforgettable. And in the days that followed, as tributes poured in from across the globe, from directors, actors, critics, and fans, it became clear that Philip Seymour Hoffman had touched more lives than even he probably realized. But here's the difficult truth: Philip's story is not just about addiction. It's about contradiction. He was a man capable of deep joy and deep sorrow. He could hold his child in one hand and a script filled with darkness in the other. He was a craftsman, a father, a partner, a recovering addict, a relapsing one. All at the same time, and perhaps that's why his story resonates so powerfully. Because in the end, he was real. And real people are rarely simple. Hoffman once said, "The job isn't hard. Doing it well is hard." And he did it so well, so extraordinarily well, that the world stood still the day he left it. Philip Seymour Hoffman's legacy isn't just captured in awards or film credits, it lives in the honesty he brought to every role and in the uncomfortable questions his life asks of us. How do we treat those who are suffering silently? How often do we romanticize brilliance, while ignoring the pain that sometimes comes with it? And what does true support look like, for a person, an artist, a soul in trouble? His hometown of Fairport, New York, remembered him with a statue in 2022. A piece of art that stands not just in tribute to his fame, but in recognition of a life lived with immense complexity. One that reminds us that pain does not nullify purpose, and perhaps, more importantly, Hoffman's story continues to shine a necessary light on addiction, a disease that doesn't care about talent, success, or accolades. A disease that takes, even when a person is giving everything they have to resist it. We must talk about these things. Not just in hushed tones. Not just in the aftermath of tragedy. But openly, urgently, and with compassion. Because somewhere out there is another artist, another father, another friend, fighting a similar battle, hoping they are seen before it's too late. To anyone watching who has struggled with addiction or has loved someone who does, know this: you are not alone. Help exists. Hope exists. And the act of reaching out is not weakness, it's the greatest strength there is. Philip Seymour Hoffman gave the world so much. His work remains. His impact echoes. And though his time was cut short, his legacy reminds us that even the brightest lights cast shadows, but that doesn't make them shine any less. Thank you for joining us today. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the surface. We'll leave you with this quote from Hoffman himself: if you can go on and do things and keep your mind and body together, it's an unbelievable blessing. Let's honor him by doing just that.